Hello everyone, welcome to Trend Talks, the initiative by Solar Plaza, where we share with you lessons learned and visions of market leaders and industry experts in order to accelerate the renewable energy transition. And I'm happy that today in our session, I'm talking to Thomas Chrometzka, and Thomas is based in Thailand. He has a broad experience in the Thai market. To give you a little bit more on the background of Thomas, he's currently working at Enapter, and where he's working on a green hydrogen smaller scale solution. Before that, he worked at SolarLux and was involved in solar development in Thailand and the Southeast Asia region. And he's been working for many years at GIZ, and before that, even in the German Solar Industry Association. So it's a very broad experience, Thomas. Welcome to this Trend Talk interview.
Hi, nice to be on the show.
So Thomas, can you briefly say something about what's happening currently in the Thai market? How is that evolving?
Yes, very happy to. I have been here for 5-6 years now. And when I arrived, the market was very much driven by support programs. There was a feed-in premium first, and then there was a feed-in tariff system. And it was pretty much characterized by a stop-and-go system where the government would have a project out and then it would be closed, and then developers would look for these licenses. The market was very spiky. What we have seen in the past years, 2-3 years, I think, is a very stable rooftop market where companies are investing in solar on purely competitive terms. The developers are selling solar PPAs as we see it everywhere in the world. And this is an interesting market, maybe not as big as in Europe and the rest of the world, but a very sustainable market segment here.
All right. Now you're working in green hydrogen, but on a different scale, like we talked with Liebreich. He is working on really big scale green hydrogen stuff. Can you explain a little bit more what you see in green hydrogen and then also happening in Southeast Asia, and how come that in Thailand there is something evolving in this area?
Yeah, absolutely. I actually moved into hydrogen a bit by accident. I came across a very charismatic founder, Sebastian Justus Schmidt, who is the founder of Enapter. I was working with GIZ at the time on how to bring more innovation into the energy sector, particularly digital innovation. And I met Sebastian, we talked about digital innovation, and at the time there was the blockchain hype, and we were talking about digitalization, and he said, digitalization and hydrogen go hand in hand. And that was what intrigued me and ultimately lead me to work for Enapter. So we see international trends that decentralized systems are becoming more and more prolific. We've just seen the oil price shock. We see that our energy systems are not resilient. We think massive change is going to come, and systems will become more resilient by having them more distributed or more decentralized. So in this spirit, Enapter has a great technology to make modular electrolyzers. Where the rest of the industry is building very large industrial systems, we're more focusing on building devices, so a commodity. So the Enapter electrolyzer is a microwave-sized device that you could put up anywhere and produce hydrogen with it anywhere. So you're cutting off a lot of supply structures that you might need to transport your fuel the last mile where ultimately you want to use it. Think of all the off-grid solutions, telecommunication towers, microgrids, but also refueling stations in remote areas. There's a lot of potential demand and areas of application.
Yeah, maybe we have to cut out some of the commercial sides on Enapter. Not becoming a commercial tutorial interview, but
right, okay.
On the general trend, where do you see, because you strongly believe in the smaller scale green hydrogen application. Maybe you can elaborate a little bit more on that.
Yes, small scale hydrogen is something that we consider super interesting because you can ultimately reach scale by combining a lot of small building blocks or modules. So a more resilient system, a more fail-proof system isn't one machine, but is a machine that's made of several. So that is interesting when you think about a modular setup. Why decentralized?
So you see that in a similar way like we approach the solar module and
Correct.
then build it out?
It's exactly the same approach, right? We have seen cost reductions in solar because the solar panel was ultimately a mass-produced commodity. You can put 2 of them on a shed or 20 panels on a house, or you can put very many on a commercial building or even large ground-mounted systems. I think that this principle can be applied to hydrogen as well for decentralized hydrogen production, and it will ultimately lead to complete this energy independence that solar has started. Solar has started to provide energy independence, but obviously is only producing electrons, it's only producing electricity. But 70%, 80% of energy demand is happening in the form of molecules. And while we will be electrifying much, much more, I doubt that we will be electrifying everything. So we do need fuels. We think that hydrogen is a great match for these demands.
Your approach in green hydrogen is more on a modular basis. It's on smaller scale. Capacity range is about kilowatts. And then you have the hydrogen. So I picture that you have this smaller scale, but then you have to turn it into a fuel that can be used in that kilowatt range. So you have to use that and attach it to a fuel cell, right? How does that system work?
Yes, so ultimately there is no limitations of what you can do. Everyone who needs hydrogen can use it in the form they want. A lot of our customers would use it, for example, in a fuel cell for transportation purposes. Customers would be refueling drones or planes or cars with it. But you can also use it for energy storage. Hydrogen has great capabilities for long-term seasonal storage, as you can store it lossless. So a lot of our use cases that we see are in the long-term energy storage. That's relevant for microgrids, that's relevant for residential, but we also have utility customers who are looking into commercial energy storage, be it in microgrid or in a different setup. But then there's all the industrial use cases as well. We would argue you can produce your hydrogen on site rather than transporting fuel. And if you can do this on site, why wouldn't you do it? And that can be used for industrial purposes as well, in the glass industry, in the chemical industry, in many different industries.
Well, what capacity levels are we talking about?
Yeah, so in our case, we build 2.2 kilowatt modules. So this is the approach. You can compare it to the solar PV module, where you just combine different modules to the system sizes that you need. You can use them for residential purposes, commercial purposes, industrial purposes. In the end, you have a very resilient system because your electrolyzer is not one machine, but it consists of many different modules.
And then if you use it, for instance, if you're a commercial user, you have one or more of these units, but you need a fuel cell to do something with that hydrogen, because nobody is used to have hydrogen in the house or in the building.
Yeah, that is correct. You need obviously a use case for hydrogen, and there are several. So you can obviously create electricity from hydrogen, which in the solar industry is the first association that many people have, right? Using hydrogen for electricity storage. I would actually say this is a use case that makes a lot of sense, particularly when you talk seasonal storage. Here, hydrogen has a lot of advantages over batteries, who are very good at load shifting or short-term storage, but a hydrogen you can store lossless for long periods of time. That can be a great advantage. But then there is all the other use cases. We're a bit electricity focused in the solar industry, but 70 to 80% is actually energy consumption is in molecules and not in electrons. So we do need fuels. In the industry, we need fuels in commercial applications, in transport, and for all of these applications, you could use hydrogen. And then it's just a question, do you produce it somewhere centrally and transport it to the site, or do you just produce it on the site?
All right. And would you see the applications more as something for emerging markets, or is that too narrow thinking?
Definitely not for emerging markets only. I think it is a great opportunity for emerging markets to quickly deploy a new technology. And we see a lot of interest from utilities in Southeast Asia, for example, who are trying to understand what opportunities lie in hydrogen. But a bulk of the demand obviously comes from Europe, from the US, from Korea, Japan, from the OECD countries or industrialized countries.
And you see that already happening, and that's already picking up, the interest for these smaller scale green hydrogen applications.
Yes, absolutely. People are always astonished when they hear that our modular and small electrolyzers is as efficient as larger electrolyzers. We get a lot of demand. It is quickly growing a use case all over the place.
So you predict a great future for green hydrogen in general, and also for smaller scale and large scale, or what is your vision?
Yeah, absolutely. The urgent need that we have is to decarbonize everything, not just electricity. And I don't see anything that is ready and on the market that can decarbonize fuel on a big scale today or within the next 10, 15, 20 years, because we don't have time until 2050, right? I think the technologies that will win are the technologies that are available now, or like very, very quickly. And I think that's the route that we will be going. Whether it's centralized or decentralized, hydrogen will definitely play a huge role. We are pretty convinced that more resilient systems are shaped with decentralized setups and will play a role there.
Very interesting. What is the question that you want to have answered from our next interview?
The question that I would ask is, we know that we can reduce our cost for producing hydrogen, and we will within the next 3-4 years to a level where it is competitive with fossil fuels. My question would be to the manufacturers of storage tanks, what price reductions they see, because obviously hydrogen storage tanks are a crucial part in the supply chain.
All right. Thanks so much, Thomas, for this interview. Good luck in Southeast Asia with your new green hydrogen business, and hope to see you live somewhere soon.
Always good talking to you. to you, Edwin. Talk to you soon.